I'm Marcy Lundy. Today is Tuesday, September 17th, 2024, and this is the Cult of Kindness Podcast. Very, very, very excited as I am so thrilled to welcome my, shall I say, co-host for season 5, the lovely Selena Blackmore. Selena's segment for season 5 of the Cult of Kindness will be called Heart Talk. And Selena, I am going to hand it over to you as I want the audience to get to know you. And if you could just talk a bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marcel, for the lovely introduction.
Sure.
I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm literally so excited. My heart was like, I remember just even like driving home to come here. I was like had so much energy for today.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I was thinking a lot about what's a good entrance to where I am now and where I got to. Sometimes I feel I like talking. I talk a bit too much. But I think a good way to describe it is, I think about a year ago, actually, it was about 12 months ago, exactly, sort of September, October time last year. The way I actually put it quite bluntly is the universe decided, I'm ready now, and you're going to go on a very deep, very fast spiritual awakening journey, ride, roller coaster, I'd probably describe it.
Yeah.
And we're going to make you go full in. And good luck. Have fun with it. It's kind of how I describe it.
Okay.
And at the time, I didn't really know what was going on. So maybe to take a step back, I'd been working independently for about 3 years. Before that, I have a 20-year corporate career. I was working in pharma, had sort of quite a solid career, kind of felt like, but there was always something missing. I always felt like I jumped around a lot of different jobs. There was something missing. There's something more I wanted. When I went independent, I was doing consultancy. I was doing really, really well. I was actually doing surprisingly well. Like I didn't really plan it. It just kind of happened.
Okay.
And then literally it was like more or less from one day to the next, it just started to go. Like contracts got cancelled, companies got bought up, like my clients just started falling away like quite rapidly. So it became a very scary space, and I came into this space of what do I do? And it was like, do I go back and become an employee? Do I start looking? And I started trying to look for clients, and nothing worked. I was applying for positions, no one got back to me. And then it was this sense of, okay, there's something else here. There's something else. Someone's trying to tell me you need to stop and you need to have a look at where you are and where you want to go.
Okay.
And that's really where I would describe kind of the real start of my spiritual awakening, where I really had to start to go deep and do the work. And it was really hard. I mean, I've been through some tough times in my life, and I've lost both my parents, my dad at 25, my mum back in 2018 was actually pregnant with my child. It was very hard. I've been through separation, divorce. I've lost my job. I've been through quite a lot of challenging times, but I would really say the last 12 months have been the most challenging, but also the most amazingly beautiful and magical months of my life. It's been like a roller coaster of ups and downs. And I feel really privileged to be where I am now. And it's fun because I was just mentioning before we started the show, I did pull a card for the show today, and I'm going to show it up so you can see it.
So good.
And the card is courage. You can see that there.
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought it was such a suiting card, because courage is basically, it's something that I think we all need. And it was something that I really needed to kind of get through that time as well. Courage and trust was the other one. So I have been very blessed to have a very deep trust. And I kind of always had that in, it's going to work itself out. So somehow, some way, it's going to work itself out. Yeah. And I think paired with that is kind of what's got me through those 12 months and got me where I am today.
Oh, very good. Well, and it was, I guess, let's say kismet that how we connected through the lovely Steve, who was a guest last year on Cult of Kindness. And he reached out to me and he told me that he knew of an individual, and he actually gave her my information to touch base. And it was Selena, and our first virtual meeting I could tell it was meant to be. Your energy is so welcome, and you
Oh,
know,
I can only give that back, Marcy. Thank you so much.
oh, of course, yeah. And I've thanked him many times over because it's really nice when you find your people, let's say, especially as adults. I know I often hear people say it's hard to find friends and connections, but I think if you're willing to be forthcoming with who you are, even if it's not the popular way to be, we
Oh,
find one another.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think I like what you, something else that I feel really strongly about is also bringing these people together, right? So I actually work with quite a lot of people that are also, let's say, sensitive or have different like mediums or different ways of they just sense more.
Yeah.
And the one thing I hear a lot of is like the wanting to be with people like them, like the people that see them and accept them and make you feel safe.
Yep.
Because I think it is hard to find, and as I said, the courage card. I needed a lot of courage to show up as my authentic self.
Yeah.
And I remember when I did my first LinkedIn post, that was quite a spiritual, deep post as an ex-corporate person to my whole ex-corporate network. I had sleepless nights. Like literally, I spent nights like, I can't do this. This is too scary. And then I did it.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing was I've actually now reconnected with people who I used to work with in a corporate
Oh,
field. And one of them has become like a super dear friend to me now.
good.
And she literally wrote me a message and was like, "Oh, I always knew there was something different about you, or you felt you had something there." And it
Yeah.
turned out that she does like tarot and she also does other things. So for me, it was again a beautiful reminder about having courage to be your authentic self. And when you do that with trueness, people will come to you. The right
Yeah.
people will come to you, right? And
That is so
part of
true.
also, I think, my journey, a lot of it was about letting go. So letting go of, and part of that is letting go of people. Like I'm sure you've experienced that as well, Marcy. Sometimes when we go through these journeys, we have to let go of certain people as well because they just, yeah, it sometimes doesn't fit anymore.
It's true. It's and it's so funny. You know, the expression "meet people where they are." You can do that, but then when it begins to cause a level of stress for you that's just not tolerable, you have
Yeah,
to let go. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that you're a mom of three and a bonus mom of two. Uh, uh, do you find yourself incorporating your work with your children? Or I shouldn't even say that because it's such a natural part of you. Does that come through with them and help you better understand that you're doing what you're supposed to do in life?
That's a great question. So yeah, I have three kids. I have two boys and a girl, so 16, 10, and 5.
Okay.
And yeah, as you mentioned, my partner also has two kids. So we don't live together, but we do that the patchwork craziness. So together when we go on holiday, we have 5 kids. So it's
Wow.
quite a lot. It's quite a handful.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting that because I love that you asked me that because it's something I've been thinking about quite a bit in terms of um so I do work with kids. I work with kids in my kind of soul guidance sessions. I do some energy work with kids, meditation. And with my own kids, it's interesting because I grew up in a surrounding where my parents were quite spiritual, but my dad was very forceful. So he was very much like, it's his way or no way. And it
Mm.
was very exclusive. So it was very much like him and my mom, and we were kind of not really part of it. So I
Okay.
think that was one of the reasons. And I love my dad, right? I've completely forgiven that part.
For sure.
But that was one of the reasons I pushed my spirituality away for so long.
Mm.
Because it was just that I connected it with that very sense of it's only this way. And I felt like, yeah, but there could be other ways, and that doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah.
So I think with my own kids, I was very sensitive to that. So I did for quite some time, was almost a bit maybe too careful about how do I bring them in without it being too overwhelming? Because I'm a
Okay.
big believer in, I mean, spirituality is so individual, and what I sense, you sense very differently, and there's no right or wrong, right? We all sense and feel things in different ways.
True.
But what they do, they grow up with seeing me, they see me do cards. They'll come in sometimes and they'll pull a card. I have special little decks for cards. So if they're feeling in a certain way. I'll say, do you want to pull a card, see how you're doing?
Yes.
The other day, my son, he's a very fanatic football player, and he said, Mom, I want to know, am I going to become a professional football player? I want you to do my cards for me. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
He actually got really good cards, I have to say. He's got a chance there.
Ooh.
But we literally did a deck together, and we talked about his story of becoming and that came from him though. So I think I do it around my kids, but it's never like you have to be a part of it. Because kids are naturally curious, they'll come in. Sometimes when I'm meditating, my little girl will come in, she'll sit with me, usually for a few minutes, then she'll walk out again. So I think it's more like, as you said, making it a natural thing and not making it like something like they have to do on top. I think the second it becomes like you have to do it or you have to believe it, they tend to be a bit more rejecting. My oldest, so he's 16, right? So he's a teenager. So he finds me very cringy. And I do Insta and stuff. So it's always like, he's like, oh, Mom, you're so cringe. However, he does like my Instagram posts, bless him.
That's so funny.
And his girlfriend thinks I'm great. So I'm kind of okay there.
Yeah.
But I think that's normal. I think that's a kind of a teenager bit like, oh, it's everything you're not the normal mom, right? I'm definitely not the normal mom.
Right.
And I've actually had that, can't you be more like the other moms, Mom? I'm like, no, really, no, that would be boring. Like, I can't be like that. But I think at the end of the day, my biggest wish is that they all see me following my dream and that inspires them to do the same. I think that's my biggest wish for my kids. What I always say is to do something that really fulfills your heart and your passion, whatever it is, right? You don't all have to study or do this. It just follow your passion, follow your heart. That's my biggest wish for them. So I'm hoping that them also seeing my progression and also experiencing it wasn't always easy to inspire them to do the same.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he wouldn't be a traditional teenager if he didn't say that you were cringe.
Exactly. I think that's normal, right?
It is. Now, Selena, season 5 of Cult of Kindness is based on the empath. It's something for myself I steered away from for many years just because I felt too much. And, it almost felt debilitating to go through life with that. And now that I'm older, I realize what a gift it is. And I'm still coming into it and learning how to navigate. I wanted to ask you, when did you realize your empath ability? When did that come to be for you?
That's interesting because I get asked about that quite a bit. So I think very, very young. I remember I must have been about, I don't know, I'm guessing around 4 or 5. And I remember this time we were in a shop, like a supermarket. My mom was like packing bags, and there was a man stood next to us. And I just felt like something just felt so wrong. Like this really strong feeling connected with this man. I didn't know him, and I didn't know what to do with it. I remember saying to my mom, "What's wrong with that man?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" Because he obviously couldn't see anything.
Right.
Like, but something feels really bad. Something's not right with him. And I think not that it means, I think she was just packing shopping. She's like, "Oh, I'm sure it's fine." She kind of like dismissed it, not in a bad way, but I think she just wasn't focused, didn't really understand. And I was 4 or 5.
Sure.
And I think because of her reaction, that was already for me a bit like, oh, it was first came to mind, or maybe other people don't feel that, because I could tell by her reaction that she didn't feel what I felt. And I think that was the first time when I kind of realized, oh, maybe she doesn't feel that. Why do I feel that? So I kind of got a bit quieter about it.
Okay.
And so I also had really bad fear of the dark for a very long time. So me and my sister, actually, she's also quite highly sensitive. And we shared stories. Interestingly, we talked about this when we were grown up. We didn't talk about it when we were little. We were 5 years apart, but we then told each other these stories. It was like, oh my God, you went through the same. Right. Where I think there must have been just something or some energy in the flat we were living where it seemed like hours, be awake, petrified, not being able to move, trying to sum up the courage to leave my room and go to my parents. And I grew up in the generation, like we didn't really have night lights, right? People were like, you turn the lights off and close the door, kind of growing up style. My dad was quite old fashioned. So not like with night lights and like you have now, and it's kind of cozy and nice. And I grew up this huge fear of the dark, which actually accompanied I literally only started sleeping with the light off about 3 months ago. Wow. And I'm going to be 44 in a couple of weeks. So it's literally taking me like 40 years to get past my fear of the dark. And I have now, and now I can be in complete darkness and I feel very safe.
Good.
So I think it was really early, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have anyone I could talk about sensing things. I also had imaginary friends, which I don't remember that well. My mom told me stories. She was called Alison, and I had her for about really young, so like from 2, 3 to about 5, 6.
Okay.
And she said it was very intense. Like I had this really intense relationship. And now knowing what I know, it probably wasn't just an imaginary friend. It was probably something else that I was
Oh, yeah.
communicating with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think very early. But as I mentioned to you, I think a little bit because of my upbringing, I pushed it away quite a bit. And I think it's challenging if you don't have people there that understand you or kind of help you through that.
Right.
You tend to push it away. And then I think school and everything, you don't want to be seen outside of the norm. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
kind of I pushed my spirituality away a lot during my adulthood. But there was always something gnawing there. So I had this fascination and there was always something missing, but I would fill it with working too much, exercising a lot, when I was younger, going out partying, like trying to fill it with things. There was always a void. And I tried to fill it with external things without really realizing what it was. And I think, as I mentioned, like 12 months ago, the universe was like, right, you're done, you're ready. Your kids are old enough. You're like, you can do this now, and we're gonna send you on your way.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of them say they've had it since very early childhood.
Yes.
Um, Often appears quite early. My middle son is also he's not very highly, but he also is quite empathic. So he's also someone he feels things. I think he sees a lot more than he says as well. So every now and then he'll come out with something. He made this comment out of the blue. I remember this is a 10-year-old boy when I was hugging him in bed, and he said, "Oh, Mom, it's so nice when you hug me, like the others hug you too." And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Others?" And I had to stay so calm not to be like, it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
the others." And I was like, "No, do you see them?" Like, "Yeah, sometimes." And then that was the end of the
Oh,
conversation. And he didn't speak about it again. So, and that's what I mean with kids, you have to let them have that, right? I think if you then go in too much and like ask too much,
sure.
then they'll tend to do this, right? So it's like you
Oh,
get pockets every now and again.
yeah.
He also senses stuff with the animals. Like we have a lot of animals, we have dogs and cats, and he's
Mm.
very like he'll sense like, oh, like that this dog's feeling sad or this one's feeling this. So yeah,
Oh,
it's carrying through the family.
yeah. That is so beautiful. And that's one of the ways we bonded because I absolutely love that you work with kids.
Mm.
Like you, my abilities I was able to realize when I was younger. And like my mother's side of the family, my great grandmother was very sensitive and in tune with all of that. So there were things that I would tell my mom, and she didn't, shun it because she knew that
Yeah,
my great grandmother was someone who experienced that also. That helps a lot, but you're right. When you're growing up, if you're going to school, you're trying to be as quote unquote normal as possible, and you
you
won't
are.
even bring it up. Yeah, they're gonna look at you oddly. But
Yeah,
the wonderful thing about you working with kids is that they realize very young that it's okay, and
absolutely,
that's important. Yeah.
absolutely, and it's um it's okay. And I actually what I'm realizing more and more. So my partner works in a school which has quite a lot of kids that have certain learning challenges or like ADHS,
Yeah.
sort of autism spectrum, etc.
Sure.
And I said to him like already, I'm convinced like a lot of those kids are high sensitive, right? They probably a lot of them, it's it's scientifically proven often these particularly uh, certain levels or autism or also even like ADHS or certain learning disabilities, they're often highly sensitive, and that's why they struggle so much in the normal school systems, right? So they might, as you mentioned, being an empath is beautiful, but it can be really hard, right? It can be very challenging if it's you don't know how to manage it and you're not supported because it's basically it's like an overload, right? It's like you
Yes.
can't take it in. Then kids don't know what to do with that, so they end up potentially behaving badly or playing up or
Right.
behaving like reacting very emotionally,
Mhm.
but it's literally because they're overloaded, and the
Yes.
energy maybe is not be right. They may sense things but they don't know how to talk about it.
Right.
So yeah, and I think it's something I really want to move more and more into, is particularly also working with schools like that or places like that to really kind of help bring more awareness about, creating the right energy that has in a space has a huge impact. That's something I've discovered more and more, how the importance of where you are, where you sleep, where you eat. The sleeping is key. The bedroom is like the number one most important space. But also like schools, like the classrooms, like what's the energy of a classroom, right? How are we helping the children to align in with the classroom? And the school my partner works in, it's great because they're actually already doing a lot of work. So they have teachers, doing meditation. They have really trying to build in that in. I think that's beautiful. I'd love to see that more and more at schools, like being awareness of helping kids, even really simple, like connection exercises, just to breathe, like before a test or before something stressful. Like it's such simple, and kids react so well with it. I mean, that's what I always find so fascinating is adults tend to, I guess it's sometimes it's trigger response, right? But they'll tend to question it more or like, not sure. And kids are just, okay. And they'll just do it, up to a certain age, right? Teenagers not included. But up to a certain age, they'll just do it. They'll just go with you. And you have to work in smaller sequences, keep it shorter, more playful. But it's beautiful to see how just like a quick, like connect with your heart. How's your heart feeling? What is it telling you? Can you describe it? And they'll really go in. And it's really beautiful to watch and experience as well.
It is. Yes, that's very true. It's so funny when you were saying you just recently learned how to sleep in the dark. I'm not even sure I am there yet.
It makes me feel better because if I tell people this, they're like, "What, really?" I was like, "Yeah, it's challenging. If you're highly sensitive, sleeping in the dark is really hard."
Yeah, I need it's so funny, the distraction of a TV or some sort of sound will help.
Yeah.
Sleep. Yeah.
It turns it off as well, right? I think I don't know how what you use to help kind of manage the downloads.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can just be too much, right? Because if it's constant, you need to learn
Yeah. I have a night light, and then we usually listen to like a podcast or music. I need that interference.
I don't know. Have you heard about Sleep Tube? Does that?
No.
Sleep Tube. So I just recently got that recommended to me from my breathwork course that I'm doing. And Sleep Tube is apparently like basically YouTube, but it's all got a really amazing like meditations and like sound wave music to help you sleep, and for meditational practice as well. And it's free to use. So apparently Sleep Tube is supposed to be really helpful to have things running to help you rest or to go to sleep. So I haven't actually tried it myself yet, but it's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, it's on mine now too. Selena, I know you have Grace to Go workshops.
Yes.
What exactly is Grace to Go?
Grace to Go. So Grace to Go was something I developed with a friend of mine. She came up with the name actually to give her credit because I love the word Grace to Go. It's basically
so great.
We do a mix of things, some online, some face to face. And it's been a mix of meditations. I've actually got some coming up tomorrow, and also I've got a couple of things coming up in September. So it's I do heart healing meditations where it's literally like a meditation where you really connect with your heart. It's to go into really heart healing, understand, as I mentioned, like you do with your kids, actually check in and ask your heart, like, how are you doing? We don't do that very often, right? How is your heart doing? What does it need? And to help, it's also very powerful when you do it in a group, the kind of heart healing presence in a group. And we often then also kind of share that unified heart healing out as well, because I'm always so a big fan of, doing collaborative, but also sharing it out, because everyone needs love, right? There's never enough love to go around in the world.
For sure.
I also do connection to spirit guide and guardian angel meditations to help people who are interested in connecting with their spirit guides or their guardian angels, and to learn more how to get in contact with them, because we all have them and they're all around all the time. And they already do a lot of work for us, but if you build a rapport and a relationship, it can become like a beautiful relationship, and they can really help you more and more. And it almost becomes like a conversation, like we're talking, that you can just bring them in. And it's spectacular for me also, those meditations, like what comes out and the people like, oh my God. And particularly you can ask for signs. That's something that usually people, we humans, we need something physical, right? We need to see something. And I had a beautiful example with someone who asked for a sign, and she got was told to look for like a dandelion, but like the dandelion with the seeds, like
Right.
the before it blows.
Yeah.
And then she started texting me, was like, all of a sudden she was seeing dandelions everywhere. So she said, I just realized I have a dandelion in my bath mat and I never even looked at my own bath
Oh,
mat. And like
wow.
everywhere she went, she was so cute. She would send me photos and be like, look, I found another dandelion. And it's just beautiful to see that when people start connecting,
Yeah.
how they start then seeing the signs. And that's literally what happened to me as well. So I have like kind of eagles, like birds of prey, as my key symbols, and then feathers. um and people could say like, oh yeah, but you see birds all the time. I'm like, you do, but I never noticed them. And then
Mm,
all of a sudden it would be like I'd look up and there they'd be, or I'd look that way and there they'd be.
yeah.
And I went through a phase, I was really doubting this, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And I was then through a huge moment of, am I going crazy? Is this the right thing? And like I was going through a really difficult time. And I remember I was walking the dogs and there was something on the ground, and I put the dogs in the lead because I wasn't sure what it was, and I came closer and it was literally like a buzzard, like quite big, like this big, and it was just stood on the ground.
Wow.
And I'm coming with two dogs, and my dogs are quite big, so they're quite two dogs. They didn't move. They
Mm.
just stared at me. And then we got like really close, like I don't know, about 10 meters, and then it flew up into the tree above me and literally just perched on the tree and literally stared at me in the face.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I was like, okay, I get it now. And it was so like so clear that it was
Yeah.
like, yes, now I get it. And they can be that strong. They can be that obvious when you're kind of being a bit like, I don't know, having a duh moment. Like, really? I went through so much self-doubt. I mean, the self-doubt process was probably one of the biggest. Like so much like, is it really true? Am I really feeling this?
Yeah.
And like the trust behind your intuition and what you're feeling and what you're getting, that
Exactly.
takes quite a while to really be able to actually say, okay, maybe I'm not mad and crazy. This is really true.
Right.
And it's actually lining up as well. But that takes a while. It took
It
me a
does.
while anyway.
Yeah, it does. And it's hard to lean in because you're like, am I okay first?
Yeah.
And then when you lean in, you're like, this is incredible. And I know I'm
Yeah.
not the only one. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And that's where you goes back when you said having the right people around you
Yeah.
is can be so like, yeah, magical, because when you start talking to certain people and they literally would look like, are you all right? Are you a
Yeah.
bit mad? And I remember like some people, when I kind of said what I was doing, they're like, so you went from like a really kind of high fly, well paid corporate job, and like, what are you doing now? Like, it was like, and I struggled in the beginning. I would like tell people bits,
Yeah.
and now I'm super open. And I still do some other work. I don't just do this work. I still do some consultancy and project management, communications.
Right.
And I like doing that too, right? I like doing that part. I think I also feel like some of it helps ground me a bit as well, because
Sure.
I'm very much up in the, I love being up there, but sometimes it's
Same
good
here.
to do some like 3D world stuff as well.
Yes.
And I can be both. And I think that's what I'm embracing more and more. I used to feel like I could only be like the corporate, or I could only be the spiritual. And
Right.
now I feel like, no, actually I can be both, and I can be more.
Mhm.
Like I don't need to put myself into boxes, and playing with that and being okay with it, and being okay posting things on LinkedIn that are maybe more business related, and then doing a post the next day that's like, oh, I'm doing a heart healing meditation. And that's taken a long time.
Yes.
Um, and interestingly, people are quite open to it. Like I always thought people would be more judgmental, and maybe they are behind closed doors, right? I don't
Sure.
know.
You never know.
But to
Yeah.
me, people are actually quite open, and I am often met with curiosity. People tend to be curious, and they'll be like, "So what is it you do?" And you can tell they can't always quite place it, but they do ask questions, which is a good first sign.
Yes, yes. Oh, we're so connected, Selena. It's so great as you're talking about that. I literally have two LinkedIns, one for this part of me,
Yeah,
and the other, which is more corporate.
yeah,
Because of what you're saying, some people are like, oh, what is this? Or, they don't
yeah.
understand. And a part of our process, I think, is learning how to not necessarily help people understand, but just through what we do, they can see it and sometimes maybe realize that's within them too.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
navigate and be okay. I think one of the so I see myself like I've been given the task to kind of be a messenger,
Yeah.
so to share, as well as the healing part. So kind of like the soul guidance readings that I do, the soul coaching, which is a part of a healing, but also the sharing.
Yes.
Um, And I think for me, one of the biggest things that I feel like I really want to help people in my work, however I do it, and whatever expression it is for people to see how they can really just be all of them, right? And
Right.
understand like all of you is, and all of you is has its place, and is important. Even the parts you reject, you're like, well, I don't like that part of me, or I don't want that part of me. Yeah, but that's still part of you, or it was part of you for a reason. It's got you here. Like if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be here now.
Right.
And really work with people to kind of see themselves as a whole, because that's what really helps you to then see what else you can become. Because people often see themselves very fragmented, or they reject certain parts, and then it's really hard to see what you can become because they're not even seeing themselves as a whole now, right? So there's like almost no capacity. So I just feel like the more open I can be and say, hey, it's kind of okay to be both. I just hope that maybe I can inspire others to be like, oh, okay, well, if she can do that, then maybe it's not so bad. And sharing that actually it's scary in the moment, but then nothing actually happens, right? And if certain people think you're a bit weird, then they think you're a bit weird, right? I think that's okay. I'm cringy. I know I'm cringy, right? My teenage son tells me that all the time. So it's like, yeah.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm okay to
Selena,
be cringe.
yes, I'm just so excited. As you're talking, I'm just bubbling over inside because it's again so nice to find uh, a like-minded individual, and I think this season is going to be such a plus having you here. And again, our segments will be Heart Talk with
So
Selena.
excited.
Yes, and in case people notice your accent, my husband always likes to joke, it's not a Southern accent. You're in Switzerland.
So my accent is actually British, because I was born in the UK. But I have a
Okay.
bit of a twang because I think I've been out of the UK so long that it kind of doesn't sound like anywhere particularly. But I kind of grew up in London for the majority of my childhood. But
Okay.
I'm half Swiss, half British, so I have a bit of both. And I'm based in Switzerland, yes, in
Yes.
beautiful Switzerland. Very privileged to be in this country. Yeah, it's lovely.
Very good. Uh, like I said, you'll be with us all of season 5, but for the audience, if they're interested in following along with you, where can they find you on social media to connect?
Absolutely. So they can connect with me on my website, which is www.heartshine.ch, where you also find my recent events and everything that I offer and a bit about me. Or you can find me also, I'm quite present on Instagram, also on the Selena Lyra _ Heartshine as well. So I usually do a mix of posts there about my life. So not just my work, but also I've got some kitten videos up there at the moment. I've got 7 kittens at home. So I did some kitten videos. There's a bit of a mix and match on there as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Selena, I'm just so excited to have you be a part of this season.
Me too. I feel so privileged to be
Yes,
here.
yes, I know the audience is going to receive so much wonderful information and energy from you. So, what a joy. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all. That is this week's Cult of Kindness podcast. Selena, thank you again.
Thank
And we
you.
will connect soon. I love you all. Take care.
Bye.